I just created an AI training agent on n8n that streamlines my clients' onboarding process for their new hires. Let me show you how to make it. So let me quickly go over a demo on how this works before we talk about how to make it. So if I go here, I'll just grab this chat URL and put it on a window. Gotta activate it first. So now it's active. And if I refresh this, there you go. Hi there, I'm your personal training agent. How can I be of assistance? Now, currently it has 2 pieces of documentation within the Google Drives folder that it's reading off of and answering questions off of. So number 1 is Mr. Giorgio's knowledge base. It's a pizza place, and it's just some generated SOPs for pizza preparation, order taking, customer service, cleaning and maintenance. Not very high level stuff here. Very simple stuff and a FAQ at the bottom. Usually these documentations will be pages and pages long, but I kept it simple just to show you how advanced a bot can be, even with simple documentation like this, and the kind of complex questions that it can answer. And I also have a taco place in there too, just for some different information as well. So let's chat with it. Let's just say something simple. Give me the steps to make a pizza. There you go. Nice steps with concise information. Can you just make this into one paragraph? You can talk to it like a GPT. It's not just a question answer. You can talk to it like it's a human being, right? And wow, look, it's made it right into a pizza. Tell me this in Spanish. Oh, I can't even type. And boom, it's multilingual. So this can be deployed almost anywhere. WhatsApp, Telegram. It could even answer more complex questions. Let's say a pizza was brought back by a customer who complains it was cold, but the delivery driver says they brought it on time. What should I do? Boom. This is not even covered within the documentation. There's nothing about, handling these sort of situations, but it takes the context it has and applies it. Listen to the customer, check delivery timing, communicate with the delivery driver, offer resolution, document the incident. Now let's ask it an emotional question, to a robot. Let's say I'm sick and tired and I want to go home. Just look at that. It's empathetic too. I'm sorry to hear that you're not feeling well. It's important to take care of yourself. If you're not feeling sick and need to go home, please follow your company's sick leave policy. Notify your supervisor, follow protocol, communicate. Oh, shouldn't I just, can't I just leave? I'm sure no one will notice. There you go. It tells you exactly why you shouldn't leave. Professionalism, responsibility, company policy. It's like your personal guide, and all it has is these documentations to go over it. So this model can be extremely complex, even if simple information is given as documentation. So now let's walk through how to build it. So here I have n8n. I like using n8n over make.com and Zapier just because it's a lot simpler, it's newer, and it's cheaper. So let's go into the first node right here. Oh, actually, let me go over the whole interface from the beginning. So top here, we have our RAG AI agent with a chat interface. Chat message comes in, the RAG agent analyzes the chat message, uses OpenAI, uses the memory to look over the past messages, so that's how it acts like a GPT model, is that it keeps track of how many messages it has. And then you have the RAG tools, the agent tools for the RAG agent, which are basically just a Supabase vector. These Google Drive files are stored within the Supabase vector to save space, because if you have a lot of files in there and you don't store them in a vector database, then it's going to be a lot more effort for this agent to go and scan through every single file every single time a chat agent is requested. You're using a lot more tokens and you're using a lot more money. And that's not good for your clients, that's not good for you. So we want to put it into a Supabase vector database. And it shortens up all the information and allows the agent to just get chunks of what they need to answer the question properly. And that gets into a whole lot of how AI works. I can make another video on that down the line. So, and then here's how you basically, this part right here just is adding Google files to the vector database and making sure it's updated. So let's go by each node and talk about what it does. So in the beginning, we have our file created and file updated node. This basically tracks whenever a file is created or when a file is updated within your Google Drive folder that you want to track for the documentation. Very simple. The credentials, that's probably the toughest part. It's setting up your Google Drive credentials. There's a whole step to it. There's documentation on this that you can click here to find out more about. I'm not going to go into it for this video. It's going to take forever. But I can make another video on this down the line. Let me know if that's interesting for you. Poll times is basically time at which the polling should occur. Wow, that tells you absolutely nothing. But it's basically how often it checks if this is set to active for when this trigger is to be run. And honestly, setting it to every minute is kind of OD. I would set it to like every day, you know, just because people aren't really necessarily updating this file all the time. It's not like you're checking for emails that are coming in. And if you set it to every minute, it's gonna run over and over and over and over again. And again, that's just more time, and that's just more, not more time, that's just more money, more operation workflows in n8n. It's gonna run up your allowance. So then the trigger on is basically, if it's checking the folder or checking the file, just set it to folder. Just checks more things. And then the folder, this is the folder where I have all the information stored. Just pick one and set it to that. Watch for file created. And the same thing, file updated, everything's the same, but just watch for file updated instead. And now we set the variable. This is important. This may seem like a meaningless step, but it's very important. Manual mapping, we don't want it to map ourselves. And we name the file ID. You can name it whatever you want. I just name it file ID. It's a string variable. And basically, I'm just pulling the variable from here. Whoop, like that, right? It's very easy. It may seem like it's a lot of code. You don't have to write any code for this. You can just pull the variables just like that. And what this does is it sets that file ID variable to be used down the line. If you don't have this variable set properly, then it can't be accessed the same way down the line. If anything is changed to this file ID as it goes through this loop, you cannot access the original version of it unless you set the variable like you do right now, which is why that node is important. The next node is also very important. This allows you to not have duplicate information within your database. If you don't have this node, then every single time there's an update made to any documentation, it's going to re-upload the entire document to your database instead of just updating that one line. So this basically deletes the old documentation so that a new documentation can be updated. And you don't have duplicate information and you're not filling up your database with a bunch of redundant information. So pretty simple here. Again, setting up the data, the hardest part might be setting up the Supabase itself. So I can make another video on how to do that. But once you got that set up, again, it's available on a documentation. It's good to read documentation to figure out how this stuff is done. And I always set it to always output data so even if nothing happens, even if there's no changes, you know, it'll fly past the node. Set this a row, delete documents, which is how I have it set right now. It auto defaults to having documents, so these options will always be there. Just choose documents. It's a string variable, and then just copy this file right here, metadata dash file underscore ID equals like dot star. And then again, you're just pulling this file ID down here, and it's green now right now because it's inputted from the last node. And this should work just fine. Then we have the aggregate one. This one is not really needed. The workflow works without it, but it's almost like an insurance node to make sure that if you have a lot of information, sometimes it can produce duplicate information within a database, especially if there's a lot of documents within this Google Drive. And this basically, or if the documents are extremely long, and this basically puts all the items into a single list, and just makes it much easier down the line for things to process and make sure you don't have any duplicate information. So it's nice to include in there even though it's not completely necessary. The next node is downloading the file. Now this is where that previous setting the file becomes important. It's because this is a different variable. You want to copy this down word for word because you can't just drag. If you drag this on here, it's going to say JSON data.id, right? We're just talking about whatever's been spit out from the aggregate column, but we don't want that. What we want is the original file, because we deleted the old file and now we're putting the new file in there, the updated file. So set file ID, which is the name of that node, .item.json.file ID. And just copy this word for word, as long as the name of this is set file ID. The name does matter. It's not just for labeling purposes. And if you copy that word for word, it should work just fine. And it pulls in the original data and downloads it. And this just set to text, JPEG, PowerPoint, CSV. I mean, these are not being used. It's just an option. But just make sure this is set as text. And then we extract document text from the actual file. Another simple node, just set it like this, extract from a text file, data, and then they can also set this to data. It's pretty redundant. You don't really need to worry about that. And then you have the most important part of this whole exchange right here, which is inserting it into the Supabase. So create this node right here, where you can find all your nodes right here. And no, it's not going away. You can just search it up like this. And then you can do okay, I just want to make it go away. All right, there you go. Yeah, so insert into Supabase. This is embedding a document. And again, you're connecting with the same database that you set up before. Insert documents from list. Again, choose documents. These will be the three options every time. And then make sure your query name is match_documents. And then you have it connected to OpenAI, obviously, because it needs a brain. And then document, connect that to a default data loader. If you click this plus button right here, it'll pop up with some information. Just click the default one. That's all you need. Just copy this down, json.data. And then you have your file ID again. But this is again set file ID because we want that original document to be put in, not the document that's been changed or altered through this process. So set that to set file ID, but this one is all the data that is coming in from here, this data right here. And just get some recursive character text splitting and set it to 1,000. You can also do 1,100. It doesn't make too much of a difference. There's things you can look up that will tell you the optimal chunk size, but I'm not going to go into it for this video. And then that is your embedding process. Let's remove this. That is your embedding process. And it just tracks whenever a file is updated or created. You just click test workflow and it'll run. Should have no problems. If there are any problems, let me know in the comments and I can help you fix it. Let's go into our RAG agent chat interface. So now we create a trigger for when a chat message is received, and set this to hosted chat, no authentication, an initial message that say, "Hi there, I'm your personal trading agent. How can I be of assistance?" If you want to name it something like Mr. Giorgio's. You can say, hey, I'm Mr. Giorgio's, how can I help you? Put some branding behind it for your clients. They always like that. Sends to a RAG AI agent. And then here's why I said you're Mr. Giorgio's. A training agent decided to help your employees with operations and policies. The best practices: answer questions using knowledge base, provide clear guidance. If there are multiple steps laid out for a topic or on documentation. If the question can be answered simply, just answer it simply. And then I also said, greet and introduce yourself. The user says hello. And also keep responses concise, understand the emotions, and be empathetic to the user. All these kind of things are important, but that gets into prompt engineering. That is also going to be another video. And just copy this down right here. When chat message received, .item.json.chat input. If you execute the previous node, if I just say, hey, you'll see that it's not coming up right now, but it will usually come up as a variable right here. If I say like, yeah, so just copy this down, that should work. Next we have, it's connected to an OpenAI chat model. This is the same OpenAI account, just use GPT-4o mini. It saves you, again, money. You don't need to use anything too complicated for this, it's just reading documents. And then the Progress chat memory, it's better than a default one, and it also connects to Supabase, which is convenient. And then the tools you need are just basically a Supabase vector database that you're storing all this information in. And set this to retrieve documents, user_documents, and description of data on a basic level. Contains all the user documents that you can check for context to answer user questions. Limit you can set to whatever, I just keep it at 4. Connect this to a Supabase vector that's also connected to a Supabase account. Operation mode, retrieve documents as a vector store for a chain tool. Again, from list documents, and make sure to have the query name as match_documents. Again, connect this to an OpenAI model, and also connect this to an OpenAI model. These are all the same. It's all the same thing. Except this one, keep it as a text embedded 3 small. You can do a large, but again, it's not a very complex bot. It doesn't need to be complex, so you can keep it as a small and just save yourself some money. So this itself is not too complicated. In terms of agents, it's pretty simple. I guess the most complicated part is actually getting the vector database sorted out. And I'll make another video on how to actually create these vector databases on Supabase. There's also a lot of other videos out available, but reading documentation also gets you anywhere. And yeah, so that's kind of how you can create this onboard trading agent, how you can use it for your clients and make some money. I know people that sell this tool for up to $1,000 a month, so it can be very useful. Thank you for watching this video. And as always, if you're interested in implementing AI into your business, go out and check my website, optrexai.com. Link in the description, and sign up for one of my consultations, and let's talk about how we can get AI implemented into your business. Thank you.